All right, welcome back to the show. This is episode 16. It is Friday, January 30th. And sorry for the slow start. I just realized there would be a great book to cite. And Sal, if you're watching this, you could probably find a PDF and send me the quote from the afterword at the end, but no pressure. But it starts with it's the alphabetization of the popular mind. It's by two authors. One of them is Ivan Illich. I don't know who the other one is. And I haven't read it. I've only read the afterword, but it has a good quote. It's the one that it ends with something about words like stones in their mouths. Anyway, it'll be relevant, but it's not necessary. So thanks for tuning in, everybody. Yeah. Oh, well, that's not why the show is an hour late. It's an hour late because I just wanted to prepare a little bit more. Because a lot of these, I'm just talking. They're not super planned. Like, in the past, I've done, actual lectures where I kind of plan things out and had a structure. This is a lot more casual for now. This is kind of just off the dome and, I didn't know what I was going to talk about today. Really, there was one stream I thought I was going to do this week, and it was going to be finishing up that anti-brain rot type thing I was talking about last week, and I haven't even gotten to that because day by day I just have to go with whatever I have an urge to talk about in that moment. Otherwise, it's going against the grain. So today I wanted to talk about the ICE protest stuff and some things that I think when I see all of the slogans and all of the actions and stuff like that. So, yeah, I don't know. So, yeah, I kind of wanted to just take a little bit of extra time. I made sort of a map to keep me more on track than usual, or more on track than I usually need to be. And, of course, we're not going to get into everything that I think about it. Oh, hang on here. Because you could talk about it for a long time, and yeah, and I mean this whole show, it's I'm gonna make hundreds and hundreds of hours of this. It's not something that can be understood instantaneously. The information that we are trying to explore on the show and integrate into our own lives, it is understood through durational time. It's not instantaneous, and that is sort of one of my problems with slogan type information and using slogan type information as sort of a code word for in-group, out-group dynamics and worldview construction. So I kind of just want to talk, it'll be kind of language based today. I'm not even really going to talk about ICE. I'm just going to talk about language, protester mindset, and I'm barely going to scratch the surface. So I think to open it up, I have some things to read as usual, and let's see. I think it's at the end of. Sorry, I'm talking to the chat. It's. I think it's the afterword. I think it's the last section. So. And I think it's it's a separate quote to start off that section, and yeah, I guess if you could email it to me if you have my email handy, because this computer's a different one than usual. I don't have all the communication stuff on it. All right, so, but it's not super important. It might not even be as relevant as I thought it was, or I might not be able to integrate it into what I'm talking about as easily as I might. That's why I wanted to find it and figure it out beforehand. But yeah, so I think to open things up, there's one short verse I want to read from the Tao Te Ching, but I have three translations here, and they each kind of highlight different things. One is, I guess one's kind of, well, I don't know. Well, I'll read them and I'll explain why I'm reading them. So, but at the core here, we are thinking about people's worldviews, how they construct their worldview, and what that worldview means for how they act over the course of their lives, and how they judge the actions of others. and how you think about, what you're even capable of in this life, and or why things are the way that they are, things like that. So I guess with that in mind, this is verse 12. I'll read verse 12 in all three of these books. So the 5 colors blind the eye, the 5 tones deafen the ear, the 5 flavors dull the taste, racing and hunting madden the mind, precious things lead one astray. Therefore the sage is guided by what he feels and not by what he sees. He lets go of that and chooses this. When I read this, so there's that theme, the 5 colors blind the eye, the 5 tones deafen the ear, the 5 flavors dull the taste. I pretty much choose 1 or 2 ways to read this when I'm reading it. And the first one, different ones may be more natural to different people. The first one is thinking about the multitude of colors. Like the five stands in as a symbol for the many. It's the many colors. So you think of all the things I see in front of me, all the colors I see in front of me, all the visual stimuli of the world, and that blinds the eye. I become numb to it. I become a little desensitized to it, perhaps. It just changes what my eye is capable of to be so inundated with visual stimuli. Same thing with auditory stimuli. Same thing with flavors. And all the senses. So that's one way to think about it. And that fits with the following, where it's like racing and hunting madden the mind, because you're overwhelmed by all of the stimuli and your mind is not calm, your mind is not simple, and it's not in its angst, or in its I don't know. It's just not still enough to comprehend that which is really around it. So that's one sense. But there's also another way that I read it, another way that I read 5 specifically. It's like the 5 colors blind the eye, the 5 tones deafen the ear, the 5 flavors dull the taste. And here, I think the number 5 can be representing classification and categorization. Like you separate red from blue, you separate green from blue, you start quantifying the colors, you start identifying them with an abstraction of what they are via your language and your mental impressions. So in that case, the 5 colors blinds the eye because you start to see the artifice instead of the real thing. You start to see the the representation instead of the reality. So the 5 colors blinds the eye, the 5 tones deafen the ear. You aren't hearing just the whole pure music. You may be overthinking the music. This makes me think of someone like Anthony Fantano or something, where it's like he listens to music and he just talks about all the other bands that it sounds like. I don't know what he's up to now, but that was what he used to do. It's like, oh, this is sort of this has sort of a disco feel to it. And I don't know, it's just like there's a classifier mind type, and our culture breeds this type. It cultivates it within us. So we suffer from both sides of this. I think we suffer from the overstimulation, numbing us to what's real, and we also suffer from the classificatory, or I don't know if that's a good way of constructing what I mean by that word, like the sort of apparatus of classification that lives inside of us. So there's two swords coming in us, and so racing and hunting madden the mind, precious things lead one astray. I think so. To interpret this in the new categorical sense that I've described, racing and hunting madden the mind. Well, you're racing and hunting within this realm of spreadsheets, say, or within this realm of like abstractions, categorizations, generalizations. You're doing like weird deductive logic to these things to like understand what is simply existing in the world in front of you and within you. So yeah, so two types of racing and hunting start maddening the mind. So I bring this up, and I guess there's 2 other ones I wanted to read as well, but off the top of my head, it just this is relevant to the sort of the people who are really who are kind of up in arms in a protest sense right now, because I think we, in our current media landscape, like we are inundated with colors, so to speak. We are inundated with sensory perception, narratives, language, images, all of this stuff that is really damaging our cognitive apparatus and our ability to make sense and to have personal worldviews that actually correspond to the world, to reality, to how power works in reality. And so I think of the racing and hunting maddening everyone's minds here, where there's sort of a crisis of conscience. There's been 2 videos of killings that have gone very viral, and it has really jolted people. And that jolt, because people are sort of like, I don't know, in a way it's like the conscience itself has become underdeveloped through how sensorily overstimulating and categorically alienating our experience in this culture is. So you don't realize that, like, this has just been happening the whole time. Like, the US has has been funding like a genocide in Gaza, like, and that's a full-on extermination of a whole people, many individuals. And people, purport to be outraged about that, but they live their lives in an ordinary way. And so, I don't know, and obviously all of this tension builds up in people, and then you see these videos of people who remind you of yourself, or maybe that they're going to ICE protests, and there's like a break in the intensity, or it crosses into a different plateau where everyone is now a lot more invigorated to protest, but just as disorganized. Anyway, much more to say about all of that, kind of getting ahead of myself. I'll read the other versions of this real quick, just so everyone can let it sink in. And yeah, someone says in the chat, like, oh my God, under Obama, like so many people are like wishing we were back under Obama. It's like Obama deported more people than Trump in this year. It's on average. Like, I believe, I mean, I guess I should check, but I believe Obama on average each year, based on that average, like this year under Trump, the deportations were lower. And obviously the tactics are different, and there's a spectacle surrounding the cruelty, and we'll talk about that too if we get to it. But anyway, yeah, like, I don't think things were better under Obama, and I don't think they'll be better when Democrats get into power, which seems pretty inevitable. So again, number 12. The 5 colors blind the eyes of man. The 5 musical notes deafen the ears of man. The 5 flavors dull the taste of man. Violent running and hunting disturb the emotions of man. Greed for rare objects is hurtful to the actions of man. That is why the self-controlled man occupies himself with the unseen. He does not occupy himself with the things visible. He puts away the latter and seeks the former. I think this has a pretty interesting, this shines an interesting light on this situation as well, because you've got that emphasis on the unseen versus the seen, and like the unseen is a way to escape the hunting, the maddening of the minds that all of this media influence is causing to us. And that could be interpreted spiritually, and I believe there's truth to that, but it can also be interpreted parapolitically, where you start to investigate actual history, how history actually unfolds, who specific people actually are who make these decisions. Or like, I mean, most people in ICE probably can't like name the divisions of ICE. I don't think I can either, but the 2 main ones are like the enforcement and removal operations and the Homeland Security investigations. And I think there's like administrative stuff other than that, but it's like you need to get kind of sharp about this stuff and think about the unseen. Like, you're seeing so much stuff from the media, you're hearing so much stuff from your friends. Start investigating the unseen and take that as far as you can take it. So there was one more here, and I think there's something else this triggered here for me. The 5 colors blind the eyes. The 5 tones deafen the ears. The 5 flavors distort the palate. Chasing and hunting madden the mind. Hard to get goods trip up the stride. So it is that the sage tends to the stomach, not to the eye. Discarding that over there, they take up this over here. And I guess this is not so acutely relevant, although it has a deep relevance if you were to linger on it, but I want to get on with things. And like, I just want to emphasize that this is the only translation that brings up the stomach. I think lots of other translations that is frequently what that word is rendered as. And it just connects to the stuff we talk about on the show a lot: the desensitization, the disconnection from the body, the entrance into a sort of contemplative hyper reality that is fucking with you. So by attending to that which you actually have, that which is actually at hand, which is in your body, in your mind, and by protecting those things, you actually can enter into a state where you are much more capable of action. And with that in mind, I'll go to one more reading here. And yeah, so all right. Great knowledge. So this is another Taoist text. It's translated by a Catholic priest. These are just sayings from Chuangzi that Thomas Merton, he doesn't speak Chinese, but I believe he just kind of vibe translated it, if you know what I mean. Like, a lot of people with books that are heavily translated, especially out of a language like Chinese, you can Ezra Pound is well known for this, but you can translate it just based on those translations and your understanding of what you think it is trying to get at. So I think these are just a few of his favorite stories. All right, so great knowledge sees all in one. Small knowledge breaks down into the many. And that is like that class of or taxonomical, someone said in the chat, sense of what reality is, where you break it apart. So great knowledge sees all in one. Small knowledge breaks down into the many. When the body sleeps, the soul is enfolded into one. When the body wakes, the openings begin to function. They resound with every encounter. With all the varied business of life, the strivings of the heart, men are blocked, perplexed, lost in doubt. Little fears eat away their peace of heart. Great fears swallow them whole. Arrows shot at a target, hit and miss, right and wrong. That is what men call judgment, decision. Their pronouncements are as final as treaties between emperors. Oh, they make their point, yet their arguments fall faster and feebler than dead leaves in autumn and winter. Their talk flows out like piss, never to be recovered. They stand at last, blocked, bound, and gagged, choked up like old drain pipes. The mind fails, it shall not see light again. That's kind of how I think about the protester mindset. And it's like, and I don't mean that with, I don't know. I mean, I think this is a sad situation. It's not like I'm not like hating those people. I think it is sad, and they are increasingly hurting themselves and everybody else in a certain way. I think there's a recuperation by the dominant system of power, or the spectacle, whatever you may want to call it, that utilizes these people against the will of, or against the good of life, or the good of humanity, against themselves. So I'll read that one more time and stop at a couple things I wanted to comment on. So, great knowledge sees all in one. Small knowledge breaks down into the many. When the body sleeps, the soul is enfolded into one, or in one. When the body wakes, the openings begin to function. They resound with every encounter, with all the varied business of life, the strivings of the heart, and that connects very directly to what we were reading from the Tao Te Ching, the 5 colors, and the rushing and hunting, the precious things leading us astray. So, men are blocked, perplexed, lost in doubt. Little fears eat away their peace of heart. I think this is a common feeling in our society, whether people repress it or not. And, all right, so great feelings swallow them whole. Arrows shot at a target, hit and miss, right and wrong. That's also how I think of protest stuff, because there's obviously elements of right and wrong in there. There's correct perspectives. There are sometimes correct wishes or assessments, but yet there is a strategical total miss. I think there's a total failure in terms of actual grand strategic intergenerational thinking, like actually trying to get things done in the world. And I think it is sort of self-satisfied, and ultimately, like, a lot of those people just go smoke weed and watch TV. So this is what men call judgment, decision. Their pronouncements are as final as treaties between emperors. Oh, they make their point, yet their arguments fall faster and feebler than dead leaves in autumn and winter. Their talk flows like piss, never to be recovered. They stand at last, blocked, bound, and gagged, choked up like old drain pipes. The mind fails, it shall not see light again. And I think that the ending there, I mean, there's two sections there that I just kind of read, like the falling apart of their arguments, the destruction of their worldview. That's something that from episode 1 we've been talking about on this show, and I feel like by 2030 people are not even gonna, I mean, most people can't make sense of anything that's going on in their lives or on the globe to begin with, but I feel like as time goes on and people are increasingly frazzled by media consumption and the social consequences of media consumption by talking to people who are also getting their minds destroyed, it's going to be brutal, and we'll witness this falling faster and feebler of their arguments. They're dead leaves in autumn and winter, and the talk does flow out like piss because it's all just talk for most people. And anyway, and then there's this other section which I feel like is indicating the real stakes of stuff like this, because I think this stuff is serious. I think state domination is a serious thing. I think there's, or like you know, there, it's hard to even pick any things to mention. I think what is going on in the globe and at all points on it is significant, especially its political movements. So anyway, so here's a picture of the future if we can't utilize the Tao, so to speak. If we can't actually recover ourselves and start thinking strategically and actually building things together, then we will all stand at last, blocked, bound, and gagged, choked up like old drain pipes. The mind fails, it shall not see light again. And he goes on with that story, but that part's relevant to us. I mean, like, I don't know. I mean, I'll read the rest. I guess I should, you know, just for context, because it's obviously relevant, but I kind of want to end on that really serious note of like, yeah, there's something at stake. It is literally life and death. We have to remember death every day. We have to think like we're going to die. We're all going to die. There's torture going on in the world as we speak. There's human trafficking going on as we speak, sex trafficking. So much of it is even in the news, and yet people can't get a grip and live differently or try to actually do anything over the course of the century. In my experience, I think a lot of people are highly defeated, and you know, and you'll reap what you sow. So pleasure and rage, sadness and joy, hopes and regrets, change and stability, weakness and decision, impatience and sloth, all are sounds from the same flute, all mushrooms from the same wet mold. Day and night follow one another and come upon us without our seeing how they sprout. Enough, early and late we meet that from which these all grow. So we meet the oneness when we go to sleep, when we wake out of the oneness from which all of the appearances grow. We enter into an unconsciousness and we become conscious, and the mind starts to operate again. The whole world starts to operate again. So enough, early and late we meet that from which these all grow. If there were no that, there would be no this. If there were no this, there would be nothing for all these winds to play on. So far can we go. But how shall we understand what brings it about? One may well suppose the true governor to be behind it all. That such a power works, I can believe. I cannot see his form. He acts, but has no form. And that can be interpreted in the metaphysical sense of God or a creator or operating force of the universe. But I think you can also interpret that in a historical sense, in the way that we're talking about in this episode, where it's like there is a true governor of history, and it is our responsibility, if we actually want to, for lots of things, if we want to make sense, if we want to protect ourselves in this dangerous, horrible world full of strife, and it's a wonderful world as well, but we need to understand the true governor. We need to understand history. We need to understand how power operates. We need to know what is going on. We can't just get riled up by the media until we're just like in some frenzied media circus state where we can be instrumentally, utilized to whatever end more powerful people have in mind for us. So, I mean, especially with, I don't know what all this is going to turn into, but it is highly disturbing, the just kind of strategy of tension feel of all of this stuff, where it's like highly spectacleized, just like brutality from the police, like no attempt to save face whatsoever. And then and so they can't even accomplish their goals doing that. Like it seems like it's all going to be given up on. Like the deportations are going to stop. Like people are going to be fired. And yeah, and then there's also just this intensity of frenzied protest. And I think a lot of people in that frenzy, they maybe become more serious about the world, but they're being whispered, like the whispering into their minds is not from history. It's not from reality. It's from other mediated sources. And I think it confuses people, and I think people get totally fucked up. All right, so that's the starting point, those two readings. And I mean, I'm kind of like getting into some stuff ahead of time. And oh, good to see you in the chat. Yes, I'm staying hydrated. All right, so I don't know. I feel kind of good about what I just talked about. I kind of wish I could just stop, but there's other stuff I can talk about. It's just not going to be quite so tight, I don't think. So anyway, from there I want to move into talking about like language and just, I don't know, I think of it as the word, but just like, yeah, logos. I don't know, just the word in human experience and how the word is operating in these sort of lefty groups. I don't really know what to call this whole thing. I guess I'll call it lefty people. And so, or like, you know, vocal, whatever's going on out there. So like, yeah, here's where I get a little more, you know, I'm just thinking out loud, but there is something so strange about the realm of the word, or the hyper reality, the taxonomic artifice that people are existing in to understand their world. And it's weird to see how it culturally operates between these people and with the opposition, or with ambiguous individuals where they haven't like classified them as in the group or out of the group. And I think it's sort of, it ties in with slogans. It ties in with the concept of virtue signaling, which I think is actually a useful concept. So what I mean by that, I guess I don't really know what other people mean by it necessarily, but in my mind, what it means is just like the importance of this concept of signaling to someone that you are in the proper group, or signaling that you have the correct belief. And so when people operate with worldviews that are so connected to an ungrounded taxonomic artifice, like a sort of detached, and I guess that's what I mean by ungrounded, but it's representational. It's an abstract sense of the world. When that's your world, the signals become very important. The signs are very important. So that's why virtue signaling is significant in these milieu. So you have, because that it becomes real. If the hyper reality is reality to you, then the signals that you send each other in the hyper reality, that's serious business. That's real serious business. So there's also sorry, there's a few directions I could go with this. I guess I'll bring up slogans for a moment, because I'm just a slogan hater. I just kind of hate slogans in general, unless, you know, maybe someone cooked up a really good one at some point. But I think they're useless, and they operate in a, I don't know. I mean, useless that's enough. I mean, who cares how it operates if it's ultimately pointless or even hurts you? So there's a way that it relates to something like virtue signaling, where it it becomes a signal, it becomes a sign, it becomes a shibboleth, or like a word that indicates whether you're in the group or out of the group, whether you're a friend or an enemy. And to say the slogan is it's sort of like saying a passphrase, and then you are understood to be within that group, whether it's all cops are bastards or Black Lives Matter or abolish ICE or trans women are women or uh, democracy in Iran or something. I don't know if, I mean, I'm sure people say that, but it's just, I think they're misapplied. And I guess the core of why I think they're so misapplied is like, because most people are operating in this totally fucked worldview that is highly detached. They're confidently living in misdirection. They're just totally misdirected. They don't know why they want what they want. There's like total corporate manipulation of our desires through advertising. And then there's the education system. There's all sorts of stuff that are spinning us around and around. It maddens the mind. And yet people repress that madness. You get used to it. You adapt to it. And that, when you adapt to it and when you live in that hyper reality, there's a type of anxiety that you can't get rid of. And I see it manifest as a compulsion to have instantaneous transfer of knowledge or instantaneous understanding. And I think this is where slogans start to get instrumentalized, because a slogan is a great way to have basically instantaneous transfer of knowledge. Like someone says the slogan and you're like, I know this person is now in my group. I didn't know before, but they said the slogan. So like, we're more or less, we're like kind of in there. And so that instantaneity, I think, is totally dangerous. And I think it comes from the anxious impulse. I think it comes from a fear and a desire for safety, a desire to know, it's just like, I don't know, I imagine someone just like totally clenched and just like freaking out inside, or maybe outside. And they're like, they just want to know what's going on. And yet, because the norm in our society is to have absolutely no idea what's going on, what does that really mean to know what's going on? You're operating in this realm of symbols. You're operating in the hyperreality, and that's where your anxiety flares and is consoled. And yeah, I don't know if I need to explain why that is a problem or why that is unhealthy, but let's just think a little bit about like what that does to a person. That's just, you can't have a healthy society if people don't live in reality. That's kind of a primary issue with our culture to begin with. We're sort of an anti-life, pro-means culture. Like it's all just about procedural, it feels like economy worship or something. It's about like procedural progress, development, movement to the end, but no one really talks about why that's the end, or is it really good to move that way? And anyway, so anyway, and yeah, so it's not just opinions about, it's not just your worldview with respect to your friends. It's like, is this person a friend, or are they like kind of weird, or are they like worse, are they an enemy? And so it also just has to do with the whole world itself. It has to do with your sense of, deep metaphysical questions, why you're here, all of this stuff. It can be so detached from you, and it can be so detached from reality. I think people really have built up crazy artifices that they live in. And I should look up the etymology of that word, because I don't even, it feels right, but I don't know where it comes from, so I should double check. And here's the thing. Here's the funniest thing about all of this is everyone is saying it, but they're only accusing the opposite camp of it. It's like, no, dog, it's everyone. And there's like clear ways to get out of it, to actually ground yourself in being and in history, in the development of a culture history that we're stuck in, and the development of your person and your personality, and the development of nature and being and your human existence. Like you can actually, you You can get to those questions, but you can't do it instantaneously. You can't just transfer that to somebody. And so it remains totally foreclosed to most people who are not willing to slow down and do that work and actually care about what they're doing with their life on the planet. So anyway, so yeah, I don't know. What do we got here? Yeah, I mean it's sad, but and people just get content to be in their cage with their abstractions, and they actually, well, well, yeah, don't kill the messenger me for telling you this, but also like that's a saying because that's what people want to do. They want to kill the messenger. You think of someone in the cage with all their abstractions, it's like you go in there to take them out of their cage, they're gonna just fucking kill you. So they're gonna be like, oh wait, you're one of these abstractions. You're the bad guy. So anyway, yeah, okay. And also when you're detached and in that cage, I think you have no actual sense of the present danger, the present stakes. That's what happens in the Chuang Tzu story, where it's like you create all these rules, you shoot all your arrows, but ultimately, like, the arguments all fail, you get bound up, you never see the light again. It's over because you couldn't discern what was actually important to be spending your time on, to be spending your time with other people on. And we'll get to that at the end. Like, I have beliefs about what I think is actually productive for people to do, and it's just not, no comment. All right. Okay, yeah, so yeah, okay. There's one more little reading in here. It's titled Flight from the Shadow, and I think it fits with where I was at. So, there was a man who was so disturbed by the sight of his own shadow, and so displeased with his own footsteps, that he determined to get rid of both. The method he hit upon was to run away from them. So he got up and ran, but every time he put his foot down, there was another step, while his shadow kept up with him without the slightest difficulty. He attributed his failure to the fact that he was not running fast enough, so he ran faster and faster, without stopping, until he finally dropped dead. He failed to realize that if he merely stepped into the shade, his own shadow would vanish, and if he sat down and stayed still, there would be no more footsteps. That's the state of mind I was just describing. Like, people get these big ideas about what they think is actually wrong in the world, and they'll run and run and run, and they're just gonna die. They're just gonna die running. They're never gonna do lasting work in the Taoist sense, because once you sit down in that shade, once you stop moving, that's not a call to leisure. It's not a call to removing yourself from the world, even. The thing that it gets at, when you actually really spend time sitting with this stuff and understanding it, is that is how real work is done. You have to actually assess that which is closest to you. You do have to sit down and reckon with what's really there, instead of having this fear response, compulsions, flightiness, frenziedness. And that is how you do work that lasts forever. That is how that's what they say in the Tao Te Ching, so to speak. So that's where that comes from. You need to enter into that. You need to work without working. You need to find the way. That's the whole thing. So, and I think people are so far from the way. They're all tripping. They're tripping each other. They're tripping the whole world up. And that's the thing. It's like, I see this as two sides of the same coin. Like, we're in this one society where we have it pretty cushy, and people are indignant about Gaza and everything. It's like, that is literally your taxpayer money. That is literally money generated from your own metabolism doing your own work. Like, you hold up this power structure, you're turning the gears, and you're like, oh man, I wish these gears would like really stop turning. It's like, you just like stop turning it. Just stop. Do something else. Figure out what else you can do. Think a little bit about planning, think a little bit about strategy, think a little bit about the real situation that we're in the world, which is not a pleasant one. It is like we live, you have to comprehend the realities. There's trials, miseries, and afflictions, as I saw in a Benedictine prayer earlier. And like, we're not giving up and accepting slavery. In that shade is where the work actually starts. That's, you have to enter the shade in order to actually be capable of working. And when you stay there, when you don't just start running again, when you actually pursue that work there, that work, you'll leave nothing undone. You'll take care of it. All right, so let's get to the end here. Oh yeah, I was quoting you with the gears thing. Um, yeah. Also, well, yeah, you make a good point. Like it, I should say, like I got kind of ahead of myself. Like, also, the fundamental thing in the story is you discover that those things, under the tree, I think he's probably going to realize that he doesn't need to be afraid of his footsteps in his shadow either. Those are things that are abstractly freaking him out because he's not actually aware of what he should be really afraid of in the world. That's the connection. That's another connection. So, yeah. So just a little bit about like about what I think people should do as an alternative. It's like, I don't think people should feel social pressure to conform to saying slogans or participating in certain actions that have perhaps little meaning. Perhaps some have real meaning, perhaps some don't. But you look at the general strike in Paris in 1968, even that didn't work. Like, I saw someone sharing a post where they're like, oh, you think America's not ready for a general strike? Like, just wait till tomorrow. And it's like, yeah, I'll wait till tomorrow, buddy. Like, we're not. We're not ready for a general strike. Good luck. So, like, general strikes require preparation and strategy and like a priming of the population. It's a strategic endeavor. You know, making political change is a strategic endeavor. You actually have to think about what's in front of you and who you are and what is possible and how things change. So, anyway. And I'm not, yeah. Anyway. It's like, my point's not that this is not going to lead to abolishing ICE. My point is kind of like, if ICE is abolished, that I don't care. Like, there's way more serious existential problems happening in the world right now. And it's like, I care more about Israel committing a genocide. I care more about the U.S. about to start another war with Iran. We bombed Iran last year. It looks like we're gearing up to do it again. Everyone's talking like it. The EU declared their Revolutionary Guard in Iran a terrorist group. It's ridiculous. Like, I actually care about, I'm kind of afraid of, like, we still live in a precarious nuclear security situation. I don't know. Pick your battles, whatever. So, anyway, so not only to perceive the single thing sharply, but to perceive the relationships between many things sharply perceived. I've read that on the show before. I think it is a good guiding principle for thinking about this stuff, where you want to be sharp, you want to be aware, you don't want to be totally carried away into territory that you're unfamiliar with. Get carried away all you want if you know where you are. If you know how to discern where you are, what the dangers are, what's going on, how it's working. All right. So, yeah, I guess maybe I'll just read this little last section because I just can't I can't really like read it and riff. I have to do one or the other, and if I'm gonna read it, I might as well just. As I was processing my thoughts on this side of the page, I just kind of write things down that seemed like kind of more in a positive light, more in a active, like, what should you actually do type of light. And I think, or like maybe a guiding principle is retreat and make sense. I think you have to, and when I say retreat, I mean fast from as much as you can, really, until you can figure out what your problems are and who you are and what's going on and what your weaknesses are, what your gaps in knowledge are. And this is a social activity as well. I think people should really be getting together to assess what they believe, their deepest moral beliefs, justifying them, understanding them, finding their gaps in mutual knowledge. Like, what what I think I said this on the show before, but like, what should a just border policy even look like in the United States? Like a realistic one that could pass. And some people think there's no option for a just one. That may be true. I mean, things are pretty fucked in terms of the way power operates at the national and intra-national level. So, like, anyway, so yeah, it's and I say fast because it's like if you just keep running around, it's like the first Dow verse we read. It's like you are gonna go crazy. You're not gonna get any of this. You're never gonna be effective, and you're probably not gonna be content. You're probably just gonna be like another anxious battery for our current society. You're just gonna keep going to work and paying your taxes and participating in social decay and consumerist decadence. And I mean, I'm not like hating on, I'm just saying, like, you know, it's a hypothetical you. Although I don't know who's watching, so I think it's just true. If you let yourself get totally carried away by the things society's feeding you, you're just gonna be, I don't know, that I'll just say that's not someone I want to be. So I want to think. I want to help people think. I want to live. I want people to understand the richness of life. I want people to wonder about life. I want people to use their intellect to understand life and the world. And that's the kind of people I would like to see creating culture in the world around me. So if you're someone like that, this show is for you. That's kind of the whole point. And if you're not, maybe you will be someday. So anyway, and that's something to return to the instantaneity concept, like the compulsive like need for things to just happen right now. I didn't get into that too much, but you can't shortcut any of this development and reap positive results. Like this is something that needs to be seriously deliberated upon with your life, like with your whole life and with other people, with their lives. You need to deliberate upon what you're going to do with your life. What is your work going to be? So anyway, yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's kind of, you know, I guess I actually did kind of talk about most of this stuff. Yeah, so I don't know. I just recommend trying to get a full picture of what's going on in the world, what's going on in your heart, what's going on the planet, what's going on in human society, how human society came to be the way it is. I recommend all of that, and I don't recommend putting on any buttons, putting on any hats where you're just like, oh yeah, this is like my like I'm a leftist or I'm right wing or I'm MAGA or I'm whatever. Like I don't think that really gets people anywhere good to rely on identification. I think that's actually kind of a trap. That's maybe the trap. That's maybe like the moral trap. When I try to understand like the root of evil in humanity and to the concupiscence to sin, like I think it relates to language. There's a deep connection to language and when thought becomes thought, when you can start abstracting, when you can start generalizing, categorizing, and identifying with the abstract categories. I think there actually is a serious consequence to that should be explored by everyone who wants to think about this stuff. And as such, be careful identifying and be careful grouping yourself in. So anyway, appreciate everybody for watching. Pretty good, under an hour. I thought that might be kind of long. But yeah, I appreciate everybody. And here's one more little, I set this aside in case it was going to come up. I guess I was going to read it at the point of just talking about how anxious and compulsive people are. And this is from that book Individuation by Goldbrunner again, where he's just talking about repression. And he says, a conscious attitude of resistance persisting through many years keeps these sinful contents below the threshold of consciousness, but only artificially. An instinct cannot be killed. It lives on in the unconscious. It is like a farmer in whose meadow a spring rises, which he stops up so as to not lose any of his meadow land, For a time, all appears to be well, but in the meantime, the water has in fact hollowed out the whole soil, for it is bound to seek an outlet, and in the end, it forces its way to the surface and lays the whole meadow waste. That's something that happens at the individual level. It's something that happens at the sociological level, the societal level. We are, by having a population that is so unaware of where they are and how they got there, we are hollowing out, we are sociologically like hollowing out the ground underneath us. It's all going to collapse. So I think everyone has an individual and social responsibility to try to ground themselves in these things, in existence and in their historical cultural situation and in their understanding of their own personality, their own faults, their own you know, the good things about them. Blanking on a word there. Awesome. Well, thank you for watching, and I'll be back Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday at 9. We'll keep going. So have a great weekend, everybody, and like the video if you can, and subscribe if you can. Hit the bell. I'll be doing this regularly. Gonna work till the work is done, and yeah, leave a comment. I like seeing the comments, and actually a lot of people have been sending me comments personally, and I've been leaving them unresponded to because they'll be in like different places. They'll be on my flip phone or my smartphone or an email, or like they're all totally scattered, and I have not been responding to them. But I actually am pretty good at responding to comments here because I have to come on here to stream. So I actually see them all in one place where I can, get right to it. All right. Appreciate you, everybody. Have a great weekend.